All right. Looks like we have six. I believe we can call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call vote to
How
open the
many,
meeting?
Steve, how
Or
many is a quorum for
a
us?
quorum is five.
Yeah, I might
So
have to
actually,
leave. Okay.
yeah. So Natalie, you can drop out anytime you need to.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Right. I'll take a roll call vote to open the meeting. Dan,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
and Natalie.
Aye.
Thank you. So that is it is Wednesday, August 17th. This is the Sherborn Advisory Committee. This is the first meeting of our new year. So I thought we might start with some introductions for the new members. We have three new members, actually, although the third, Steve Garemia, is on vacation right now, so he cannot join us. But we do have Nora Lynch-Smith and Mike Winters. And I figure, I guess the other advisory members who are here can go around and give a quick introduction of yourself as well, just so Nora and Mike know who you are. But I guess, Nora, if you wanted to start, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you very much. I am Nora Lynch-Smith. I live on 114 Woodland. I also used to live on 10 Morse Road, and I've been here since the year 2000 is when we moved to Sherborn from South Natick. So married to Jim Smith and have two kids that have gone through most of the Dover Sherborn school system, and they're in college and grad school now.
Great, thanks. Mike?
Mike Winters, live at 45 Maple Street. My wife and I have a 4.5-year-old son, Thomas, and he'll be starting with the Pine Hill preschool program in just a few weeks, which is amazing to think that. And yeah, I'm excited to be a part of the group.
Great. And sorry, and your professional background?
Oh yeah, and I'm an employment lawyer with a company in Holliston.
Great, thanks. Natalie?
I'm Natalie Weir, 26 Stopping Brook Road. Been here for like 30 years. My children are like 31, 33, went to Dover Sherborn High School. I work for a electronic medical records company. So I don't know what else.
That's good. Thanks, Nat. Peter?
Peter Galatano, 107 Goulding Street West, the beneficiary of a newly paved road. Thank you to all of our work on advisory. My road got paved. Been in Sherborn for 21 years. My two children went to the school system. One is living out, postgraduate, keeping me in the lifestyle that I'm accustomed to, or at least that's my plan, though she may not agree with it. And my son is a junior this coming year in college, and we're driving him back tomorrow. Been in healthcare finance my entire career, and looking forward to another year, and they won't let me continue because there's a term limit. So this is it, the swan song.
I'm sure you would stay on for another decade if you could, right?
Of course.
Great, thanks, Peter. And Nora and Mike, you met me and Dan in person, but just briefly, I'm Steve Tsai. I have been in town for 9 years, and this is my 6th and also final year on advisory. I've been the chair for the past 2.5 years. And I have one son, 8 years old, about to start 3rd grade in Pine Hill. And I'm a veterinary radiologist, and I work half-time at Angel in Boston and half-time for a teleradiology company based in the UK. And finally, Dan.
Hey, everybody. Good to see everyone. I'm Dan Sickle. Nora and Mike, we met before, but just really briefly. Live at 116 Lake Street. My husband and I moved here about 10 years ago, moved out from the Washington, D.C. area. And let's see, professionally, I'm an econ prof at Wellesley College and spent 20 years or so before that in Washington doing economic policy stuff. And had a lot of fun on the committee last year and looking forward to another year.
Great, thanks. And then there's two other members who aren't here, Jane Matarazzo and Wasim Basili. So whenever they are next on a meeting with you, I'll have them, or the chair at the time will have them introduce themselves to you. Great, thanks. So I'm going to start with reading of the agenda. So first, we have addition of topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance. I have nothing. Does anybody else have anything they wanted to add? Roger. Oh yeah, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead, Roger.
I just want to check in and see what the status of the ARPA funds allocation is, if that's crooked for this session.
No, I don't. We're not going to be discussing that. I mean, essentially the ARPA discussion is now essentially in the hands of the select board. Because we had our sort of discussion and we made recommendations to the select board.
Right.
But ultimately it's the select board basically has full control over the ARPA funds. So I would check with them.
I did. And as you may know, they weren't interested in doing anything about town water or sewer. And they said it was up to you. So I didn't think that was true, but
it's definitely not up to us.
I thought I would check.
Yeah. Yep.
Roger, I think ARPA stuff is likely to be on the agenda for the August 25th select board meeting.
Okay. I'll pay attention. Thanks.
Roger, it's Natalie Weir. Are you on the Water Commission?
I am, yes.
I'm the liaison for the advisory to you.
Okay. Yeah.
So I will get in touch with you. I don't know. I'll find your email somewhere.
Sure. My email is simple. It's Demler, DEMLER @msn.com.
Okay, I will email you so you'll have my contact information.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. All right, then we will have liaison reports, and then followed by reorganization of the committee. And then after that, we will discuss our liaison assignments, then have initial discussion of the budget season and guidance, and then we'll approve previous meeting minutes. Does anybody have any questions or comments about the agenda? Ooh, Wasim is here. All right, if not, then let us actually, I'll give Wasim a minute to get logged in, and then maybe Wasim can do a quick introduction. Wasim, just so you know, we have three new members, two of which are here tonight. One of them is Nora Lynch Smith, and then the other is Mike Winters. And Nora is a real estate agent who has been in town for about 22 years. And then Mike is a lawyer who, actually, I missed the part where you said how long you've been here, Mike.
Oh, yeah, I might not have said it. We moved in 2012, so 10 years.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we had a lawyer shortage on the committee, so I did make a specific request that we needed another lawyer on the committee. So, all right. So Wasim, if you want to just give a quick introduction.
Okay. Hello. And first of all, my apologies for joining late. I had the pleasure of going through a previous 3-hour advisory meeting to try to gather the notes for that. So I ran a little over. Anyway, my name is Wasim. Welcome to the committee. Nora and Mike or Michael? Was it again?
He was fine. Mike,
Either one. So welcome
Yeah.
to the committee. I've been in town since, what is it, 7 years now. I love the town. I have 3 daughters in school at Pine Hill, and advisory is fun. No, I'm just kidding. It's good. It's very nice to see the process of looking at the finances of the town and to feel like making even the slightest impact is rewarding. I don't know. Sorry, I missed your intros. I don't know what everyone else went through, but that's briefly sums it up. Professionally, I'm an engineer, so yeah, that's about it. Welcome.
Thanks, Wasim. All right, now liaison reports. I just have one thing in case you guys were not aware, but the select board did vote to offer the job for the town administrator to Jeremy Marcet, who is currently the DPW director in Natick. I don't think that they've gone through their whole contract negotiation or anything yet, but at the last select board meeting, they interviewed and deliberated, and they voted to make an offer to Jeremy. I think that's the S&P gave us another AAA bond rating. I don't remember if that was before our last meeting or since our last meeting, but we did get another AAA bond rating. I think that's all I got. Any other liaison reports? All right. If not, then I guess let's move on to the reorganization. This is where we vote for a new chair and vice chair, hopefully a new chair. So I will lead it off by nominating Dan Sickle to be the chair of the advisory committee for the current year.
I second.
Third, quick, let's vote before you change your mind.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, let's go.
So, I'm pretty sure there won't be any more, but are there any other nominations for chair? And you are allowed to nominate yourself if you're insane. All right, so we have one nominee who has been seconded. I will take a roll call vote for, actually at first, Dan, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Excellent. So I will now take a roll call vote for Dan Sickle as the advisory chair. Peter?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Nat?
Aye.
Wasim?
Aye.
I'm also an aye, and Dan, you are also allowed to vote for yourself if you would like.
I will vote.
right.
I'll vote aye.
All right, it is unanimous. And so Dan Sickle is the new chair of the Sherborn Advisory Committee. Dan, take it away. It is now your meeting.
All right. So thanks everybody for the vote of confidence. This is going to be kind of a wild thing for me. I'm excited to do it, but it's going to be hard to fill Steve's shoes. I'll need a lot of help and support from all of you. I've only been on advisory for a year. So in contrast to Peter or Steve, I'm not about to term out, but given just having seen this once, there's a lot that I'll need to learn about functioning effectively as chair and kind of guiding all of us in the right places. So hoping that I can get that support during the year. So I think and again, appreciate the vote of confidence, and we'll work hard to try to do my best to do a good, solid job. I think our next order of business is to choose a vice chair. And I think I'll use the chair's prerogative, and I will nominate Steve Tsai as vice chair. So
Second.
Is there a second?
I
Oh,
second.
yeah. Steve, you can run but can't hide, huh?
That seems to be how it goes.
Steve, are you good with that?
Yes, I accept the nomination.
All right, any other nominations? Hearing none. Okay, so let's do roll call vote. So Peter,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Natalie,
Aye.
Wasim.
Aye.
I'm also an aye, and Steve.
Aye.
Okay, so unanimous vote 7-0 for Steve Tsai as vice chair. So that's great. Congratulations, Steve.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I think remaining items of business sort of talk a little bit about liaison assignments, a little bit about kind of the beginnings of budget season. We have a round or two, maybe 2 rounds of minutes to approve, and then we should probably talk about a date for a next meeting. So none of this, I think, will take a super long time. Should be able to get through this all, unless something unexpected comes up pretty expeditiously. So Steve sent around list of proposed liaison assignments. Hope everybody had a chance to pop that open and have a look. Steve put that together with some input from me. Appreciate Steve doing that. It looked to me like a pretty sensible allocation of responsibilities. If anybody, has particular concerns about an assignment, let me know and we can, make some arrangements. For those of you who are new on the committee, the idea of liaison assignments, I'll say a little bit, and then Steve, or if anybody else who's been on the committee longer than me wants to add to that, please do. But the idea is so that each department head, each budget maker has a point of contact on advisory. Since once we get to January, we'll be having each department head, each budget maker coming to one of our meetings to talk about their budget, explain the numbers, explain any changes. And the point of liaisons is to have a point of contact on the committee for each of those folks. Depending on the department, how big a department, how small a department, that can be a bigger or smaller job. I think most people have found that not super burdensome. I think in an ideal world, and this can be for a variety of reasons, can be challenging to do, but in an ideal world, just as Natalie did with talking to Roger about, hey, I'm your liaison, we should connect. Sometime in the next couple months would be good to just make a connection, make sure department head knows you're the liaison. And I think that before we get into stuff, the kind of initial value is, just finding out, are there any big changes, any things that might be helpful for advisory to know about ahead of time before we actually get to the season of people actually presenting budgets. Steve, anything you'd add to that?
No, that's good. I think the only thing I'd add is if you're on a committee with 2 liaisons, generally it's going to be a sort of a senior and a junior member. So ideally, the senior member has previously been the liaison anyways. So if I were you, I would just wait for that more senior member to sort of make first contact with the department, and hopefully they will introduce the new member to the department head as well. So that's the only thing I would add.
Great, thanks. And if anyone has, again, as I said, just to repeat, if anybody has concerns about assignments, let me know, let Steve and me know, and we can do a little bit of reworking. But again, I think we both thought this was a pretty sensible allocation of duties and responsibilities.
The one thing I wanted to clarify also, and this will be a discussion right now, for capital budget. So I put Peter and Nora on capital budget. So this is sort of a different one because you're not just a liaison, but you're an actual member of capital budget. So capital budget committee is composed of 2 members appointed by the moderator and then 1 member appointed by advisory, acting ex officio. So Peter has been on capital budget for several years, and I'm trying to set up a sort of handing off of the torch to somebody else. And I picked Nora.
Thank you,
Now,
Steve.
there's only one. There's only going to be one voting member from capital budget, and then the other will be sort of like an associate member. And so I was going to leave it kind of actually up to Peter, because I know, Peter, you have some constraints on your time outside of advisory. So if you felt like you wouldn't have the time to commit to being the official voting member of capital budget, then what I was going to do is have Nora be the voting member. And then Peter, you can kind of hopefully sort of show her the ropes. Or alternatively, if you felt strongly about it, Peter, you could be still the voting member and then kind of guide Nora to be ideally the voting member next year. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on that, Peter.
No, having two people is ideal because you have coverage and the process is truncated compared to advisory. So the meetings aren't as frequent, but when they do occur, a lot gets done. So I would say, Nora, we would play it by ear and see how the year goes. And I'm sure none of the departments need capital this year, so it will be easy.
And I
Right.
started out last year shadowing Peter on capital budget, and then partway through the year we flipped and I became the voting member. So there is a period in the spring when there's a series of capital budget meetings. It's interesting, and you get a deeper look into capital planning and so on for the town. Steve, do you know from Mary if she's had success in identifying, presumably Corey Lincoln's going to continue, and then has she identified another member? Did you hear from her?
She does not have another member yet, but she said we should probably assume that Corey will be the chair this year.
Okay, Corey will be a great chair. That'd be excellent. All right, good. Any other issues around liaison assignments? Obviously, if we get going, if questions come up, get in touch with me, get in touch with Steve, and we can provide some background guidance, whatever, if there are any issues or problems that come up.
Yeah, in an ideal world, if you are the liaison to a committee that has public meetings, you should try to attend their meetings if possible. That's certainly easier these days with Zoom. It was a bit harder to attend all the meetings when they were in person. But that's certainly an easy way to kind of stay on top of what people are doing, because a lot of the committees may not actually contact advisory, because we're pretty low on the list of people that get contacted when somebody wants to do something, until they need money, at which point they're like, oh, wait, we have to go talk to advisory, don't we?
Right. The people who are actually budget makers will be coming before us, will be, right, much, as Steve was saying, much more inclined to reach out. Yeah. Steve, anything else on that we should mention?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's really everyone's just mostly a point of contact, try to attend their meetings, with the big budget departments, try to make contact at some point this fall and have preliminary discussions with them about their budgets. But I think we'll talk about all that in future meetings. So.
Yeah, and when we do liaison reports at the beginning of meetings, that's the ideal time to bring back any information that would be good for the whole committee to know. So if, say, the fire department is planning to do a big expensive truck, that's useful information to share, before we actually get to budget presentations and so on, just so that can kind of be worked into some general sort of general thinking about what does the budget situation look like for the town.
Peter or Dan, can I reach out to you about that capital budget?
Absolutely.
All right. What's the best? I'll just reach out via email and schedule time with one or both of you, or really just one of you, I guess. That would be great.
Yes, and that leads into a great topic, and Dan, you may already have an orientation speech. But each year with the new individuals coming on, it's kind of the advisory committee is like drinking water from a fire hose. And what will make it easier, I believe, are, some homework, though the policies which probably contributed to our AAA rating, right, Heidi? And the state has a wealth of information in the DLS, Division of Local Services, for both finance advisory members, town accountants. It's quite extensive. If anyone's bored at night, needs to go to sleep, you can read those and you'll quickly fall asleep. But more closer to home, I think the policies would be a great start to orient towards at least the best practices which we put together more recently.
Thank you.
And anyone on the committee, I'm sure as I and anyone else will be more than happy to help guide and answer questions.
Yeah, so I think I can send copies of a couple of the official policies that were adopted last year to both of you. So Nora, I'd say definitely get together with Peter.
Right.
Steve and I had a chance to meet with Nora and Mike in the last couple of weeks. So did a little bit of kind of how does advisory work? How does the calendar go? So did a bit of that kind of orientation stuff then. And Nora, I would be happy as well to talk about capital budget stuff, having, kind of followed along with that last year.
Great, thank you.
Anything else that anybody wanted to talk about around liaison assignments? Okay. So then our next item is to have a brief bit of a starting to think about beginning of budget season and budget guidance. So I think so Nora and Mike, right? I think we talked about this a little bit before, but the committee will send a letter with guidance to all department heads and budget makers that last year said for your general operating budget, not including salaries, actually do level budgeting. So target a department budget that's same dollar amount as the prior year. Obviously, with higher inflation numbers, that gets to be more challenging for people to do. And then for the COLA for non-union employees, we recommended 4%. And so the letter will have a little bit of background, and then those are kind of the key numbers that budget makers will be looking for as we sort of think about big picture. What do we want departments to be shooting for as a target so that all the budget numbers add up in a sensible, reasonable sort of a way? So we will have some thinking to do about that. I think prior to last year, for a significant number of years, the guidance was flat dollar term budget with a 2% COLA for non-union employees. The union employees obviously negotiate separately, and so there's a set of collective bargaining agreements that govern union salaries. So we'll have some thinking to do about, given what the inflation situation has been, rising costs, pressures on employees with everybody's household expenses going up, what would be a reasonable and appropriate set of numbers. I was thinking probably, and so I think our target would be ideally to have that done by the end of October. But I think realistically, it will, if I remember right from last year, it'll slip a bit into November. So we'll have a meeting in September, meeting in October, maybe a meeting in November to finalize stuff. So we'll have some time to have some more significant discussions about that. I had in mind for our next meeting in September to try to with a little help from Deb and Steve to maybe pull together some very high level budget numbers, just so that we have a few numbers to kind of look at and think about as we start to work through that. The one thing I can the bit of information I can report and provide just in terms of the inflation context, over the last year, overall CPI inflation up 8.5%. If you look at the Northeast, it's a little bit less, about 7.25%. So big inflation numbers. For what it's worth, there's a survey that the Philadelphia Federal Reserve Bank does of professional macroeconomic forecasters. So they have inflation forecasts going out a couple of years. You want to take these with a big grain of salt. Economists have not done a great job at forecasting with this weird, strange economy that we've had. But for what it's worth, they're forecasting over the year 2022, total year 7.5% overall CPI inflation. For 2023, they're anticipating a big drop to just a little bit over 3%. And then for 2024, about 2.5%. So for what it's worth, the kind of macroeconomic forecasters see the high inflation this year and then anticipate, given everything the Federal Reserve is doing, that those numbers are going to be coming down. So we'll have some thinking to do about how that would feed into what would make sense for budget makers in terms of kind of general operating budgets, what would make sense for COLA, and how does that all fit into kind of broader constraints about how much the town is going to tax and what the tax rate is going to look like. So that would be my kind of big picture overview of where we're going to go. I wanted to open things up, Steve, if you wanted to jump in, or others with big picture thoughts about that. I don't have a lot more to bring tonight than what I just said. I think in a month we can begin to have a few more numbers to look at and begin to talk about. But Steve or others, anything else to kind of talk about as a setup for where we're going?
No, I mean, I'll say, just like you said, for literally since I've been on the board, the guidance every year has been level funding and then plus some amount for COLA, which was 2% every year until last year. I think that system every year we end up trying to discuss a different strategy for it. And I've tried several years to come up with different ways to handle the guidance, but ultimately we always end up at level funding and some percentage for COLA. So I imagine that's going to be where we end up again. This year, I don't think that most of the department heads seem to operate well under this guidance. And they know that level funding doesn't mean that nobody is allowed to have a budget that's higher than last year. It just means you just have to justify it to us. And they're usually pretty vocal about justifying why their budget needs to go up. So I think that works pretty well. I don't know if this year, because we've seen pretty high inflation over the past 2 years, whether that's going to be a bigger problem, because they're going to have costs that they can't control, right? So maybe we'll get some more pushback from the budget makers, but that might be one of the things that liaisons, if you can get in touch with your department heads early, ask them if they anticipate that there's going to be a big problem with their budgets if the guidance is level funding again. But yeah, I think mostly it's going to be a matter of trying to figure out what the COLA recommendation is going to be. And usually we also, I try to wait for personnel board to make a recommendation on COLA as well. So I kind of had to push them a little bit last year to meet in order to get their COLA recommendation out before we set our guidance. So that's a thing that, Dan, you may have to get, or I guess who's the liaison for personnel board?
I think that was me.
Yeah, so that might be a thing that you'll have to just get in touch with them in the next couple of weeks to find out. I mean, last year it was getting close to guidance, and I think literally personnel board hadn't had their first meeting yet. so I was like, okay, could you guys do that? But yeah, so between Dan and Mike, you guys may need to to prod the personnel board a little bit to make sure that they meet and make a COLA recommendation before we get our guidance out.
Mike, you and I can connect on that and figure out the best way to approach them and do that. I was just going to emphasize what Steve said, that this is actually a time when it'd be really helpful to get a little feedback from department heads about whether level funding, how much pushback would there be against that? And to just reiterate one other point Steve made, last year there were departments that came in with budgets that went beyond guidance because they had things going on and very good reasons for doing that. Deb, do you want to jump in?
Well, I just wanted to chime in that our new town administrator is actually on, he lives in Medfield, and he is the chair of their advisory committee in Medfield. Obviously he'll be stepping down from that, but it might be a good idea to see what kind of process they use or what kind of guidance they use, just to incorporate it and just make it ours as efficient and effective as possible.
I am looking forward to talking with him about that as soon as he's on board.
Yeah, and
that seems exactly right, Deb.
Yeah, I was going to say I did watch one of their meetings, and they use their town administrator incorporate the town administrator much more in the advisory meetings than we ever have. And I don't know if that just happened over the course of time, or if that was, just our previous town administrator style not to be involved, but it looked like it worked really well for them. So
my understanding, Deb, is that the town administrator actually did a lot of the budget presentations rather than necessarily department heads.
Yeah. And I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I just wanted to throw out there that, it might be a good time to incorporate some new ideas as well.
I look forward to talking to Jeremy as soon as contract negotiations get sorted out and he gets on board.
Yeah, and it might be a while before that happens.
Could take some
time.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's a very good point that Deb brings up. I think there are a lot of towns that have a quote unquote strong town administrator, which from my understanding, there's an actual definition to what a strong town administrator is. And we have not had a strong town administrator, and that's not a moral judgment. It's just the type of town administrator that we've had. And I think it means that a lot of the departments are sort of working on their own initiative, and then advisory ends up being the one layer of oversight between the budget makers and the omnibus that's presented. Whereas in towns with a strong town administrator, the town administrator is the one that develops the budget. Obviously, there will be exceptions because there are some committees that are not under the town administrator's purview, the elected boards and other independent boards, but the majority, and the schools obviously, but the majority of the town, I believe, especially the larger budgets, are basically under the town administrator. So having the town administrator work with the department heads on a day-to-day basis and then develop their budgets, and then ideally just have one meeting with the town administrator where we can cover all of the town administrator's budgets, and having delivered our guidance, hopefully collectively all of the town's budgets will be below or close to the guidance. I think that would be a great model to work towards. Whether we're going to accomplish that in year one of a brand new town administrator, I'm not sure.
Exactly.
But I think certainly over the next couple of years, that would be a great goal to move towards that model. But
it could definitely kind of consolidate and smooth things out. I mean, I think we can talk to Jeremy as soon as he's kind of settled. And as Steve said, I could easily imagine in his first year, he's going to be kind of finding his way. Although given that he's, been chair of advisory, or as they call it, finance committee there, he may feel more prepared to jump in on some of that, but we'll just talk to him when he gets here and we'll see. Yeah, thanks, Deb.
Oh, just throw him into it. He'll be fine.
Yeah. No sharks in this tank. Easy swimming. It's all good.
If he doesn't know any difference.
Well, although Natick, I don't know, maybe. Other things on budget guidance and kind of getting that conversation started that anybody wanted to offer for tonight?
May I ask a question?
Of course.
For example, on DPW town, So again, I guess that's Mr. Galatano and I will get together on that too, since he's the senior. But for one that's just me, just say town forest, or I think the other one was with Addie May. Do you want me, do I reach out? So the letter comes from advisory
Yeah.
and then
So-
I reach out and just say,
So
talk to me.
yeah. So I think neither of those are going to be giant budget items.
Mhm.
And so I was liaison to town forest last year, and actually, I didn't end up talking to Dave Colleen until, a few weeks before he was scheduled to come to do a budget presentation. And given the, size of the budget, that worked out just fine. It'd be fine to shoot him an email and say, hey, I'm the liaison. If anything comes up, I'd be happy to talk. But I don't actually think there'll be a lot to talk about there.
All right, thank you.
Until we actually get to that. Different for police, fire, and so on, where they're giant giant departments with big budgets.
Yeah, and town forest is also a revolving fund, so those work a little bit differently from the standard budgets. The revolving funds are supposed to generate their own revenues and then spend their own revenues. So for town forest, they generate revenue by selling firewood from trees that they cut down from the town forest, and then they use that money to do whatever. Occasionally they will ask for additional money for a project or something like that, but basically, there's little to no taxpayer money goes into the town
All right.
forest. And
Yeah.
then the housing trust is very recently established, and I don't think there's any money in it yet. So there's probably not going to be a whole lot going on with the housing trust in the
Okay,
next
great.
year. So
I do know that town forest is, they've been thinking about fire roads and, what if there was some sort of, fire in the town forest? Is there access for emergency equipment to get back there? So, there may be some items that they're looking for a bit of money for. And, at some point, definitely I'll want to check in with Dave on that, but
Sure.
that's not like I do it next week.
Okay, thank you.
He'd be very puzzled if you called him next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Deb, please go ahead.
Yeah, and I hope I'm not speaking out of line. I'm just speaking kind of on behalf of department heads. I know, like last year during the budget season, different department heads would say, I've never heard from my liaison, or I reached out to them and somebody else said, oh, my liaison reached out to me. I don't know if it's possible to kind of standardize the approach to reaching out to all the department heads, maybe via email, and just say, hi, I am your liaison. If you'd like to talk to me, here's my number, here's my email, or something like that. I don't know if that's possible, or if you agree with that or not agree with that. I'm just, sharing that different department heads have different experiences with their liaisons.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. I think that'd be a fine thing for everybody to do, to just shoot an email and just say, hey, advisory is just getting going for the year. I'm your liaison. Any issues, please get in touch. Otherwise we'll talk as we get a little closer to the budget season. But to pick up on Deb's point, definitely, I think, before people actually come in to do budget presentations, when we get to that in January, definitely would be good to have touched base with department heads for which you're the liaison, just to make sure that we don't end up in a situation of department head who never had that opportunity to sort of touch base with somebody on the committee.
and with our guidance letter that goes out in October, November, we'll also publish the list of liaisons to each of the departments, so they should have that information. But I do agree that I think a direct email from the liaison to the department head in the next month or so is probably a good idea.
Oh, Steve, I didn't remember that. When we send that letter out, we have an attachment on that lists all the liaisons.
Yeah, I mean,
Good, okay, good.
yeah, there was one attachment that had the schedule for the entire budget
Right.
season, and then also
Right.
all of the liaisons. And
Okay.
I think some of the department heads probably didn't read past the first page, because there were some
We got
that were
those
like,
couple of
"Oh,
numbers and then they got on
yeah,
the
some are
thing.
like, I never knew that my budget presentation was scheduled for this week, and it's like, actually that went out with the guidance, so you've
Right.
known for months. But
Yeah. All right, well, maybe we can craft a cover note that says you actually have to read to the end.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Okay, so we'll pick that conversation up at our next meeting, and we'll have we'll have to do the thinking about what these numbers should look like, and what the personnel board's up to, and so on. Okay, so the next item is to talk about minutes. So I have a set of minutes from the July 19th meeting that I can share. Wasim, I think you have minutes from an earlier meeting.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have minutes from June 1st. I'm actually still working on them. That's a meeting where I attended half of it. And then Natalie sent me the other half of the minutes, and I'm now going through the recording to try to kind of put them all together. So
Okay.
Yeah, I'll try to send that out
Okay.
before our next meeting for sure.
Okay, so we can take care of approving those at
Yeah, that was a 3-hour
next
meeting. So a very content-rich meeting with the consultant presentation and a lot of discussions. Everyone taking discussion in different directions. So anyway.
Sounds good. That sounds good.
But actually, sorry, Dan, before going into the minutes, I wanted to make a comment about, did I hear I had stepped away from the desk for a sec, but the new town administrator is someone that is used to be more involved in advisory meetings. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so he's the DPW director in Natick now. He lives in Medfield, and he's chair of their finance committee.
In Medfield?
In Medfield.
Nice.
And what Deb was highlighting, I think, having watched a video, because they're posting videos like we do, having watched a video of some of their meetings, had observed that in Medfield, the town administrator plays a bigger role in presenting budgets and so on than what's been the custom here in recent years. So that was the gist of that, Wasim.
Nice. Okay, thanks. So I do like the idea of a town administrator actually joining the meetings, not for the purpose of presenting budgets, because oftentimes when we ask questions, unless the town administrator is really, really detail oriented, sometimes our questions are detail oriented, having the budget maker be present would be beneficial. But the thing that would be very beneficial to have the town administrator is there are things that can be done across departments to improve the financial situation of the town in the long term. So, there's so much levers we can do when we say level funding and COLA, right? That's only one lever, right? But the other lever is what can we do long term, whether be it productivity improvements or initiatives that really improve the financial situation of the town over the long term. It's less impressive to have 2 great years of tax rates going down, but then things crash in the other direction in the following 3 years. But it's really tougher and more sustainable to work slowly to improve the financial situation of the town in the long term, looking 5 years away and so on. So from that perspective, I really like an involved town administrator, not necessarily to present the budgets, but to talk about what can be done over the long term.
So Wasim, yeah, I agree. There's plenty of scope for long-term planning and thinking through some of those issues. And I think as Jeremy gets here, we'll just all have to see, what he wants to focus on and how quickly he gets to different things. Given that he's seen the Medfield model, he may be. I don't know what the Natick model is. That's a very different kind of place. But Medfield's not that different from Sherborn, and so he may be very comfortable with that sort of a model. So as I said, as soon as he's set up here, I look forward to talking to him about all of that and getting a sense of what he's used to, what his expectations are, and how that's all going to fit with how we've done things on advisory. Okay, so I have minutes from our July 19th meeting, and I can share those. I don't know if people, they got sent around a while ago. I don't know if, I think Steve sent them around again recently. I don't know if people had a chance to go through them. Let me see if I can get them shared. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see those.
Yep.
And I am happy to take any suggestions, corrections, and just edit in real time. And if we converge on a version, then we can vote on it. So I'll leave it here for a minute and then scroll down. And Nora and Mike, you actually, when we get to voting to approve, if you like, you actually can vote on the minutes, even though you weren't actually at the meeting. So please.
Dan, I think the meeting was Wednesday, July the 13th.
I think you are right. Thank you. Excellent, thanks. Huh, I wonder how I got the 19th and interesting. Okay.
It's interesting. Your original, I didn't actually notice it in the minutes itself, but the title of your document, I think said July 14th. So I had corrected that to the 13th when I sent it around, but I didn't actually notice that the date and the actual minutes were wrong as well.
Good. So I'm obviously having trouble with dates. I will try to get my head sorted out on that. Heidi.
Yes, I have a question, amendment on the liaison report on the Standard & Poor.
Yeah.
Diane Moore's was in the committee as well.
Oh, so yes. Thank you.
Yes, sure.
Yes. All right. So let's see. It's acting town administrator.
Interim town administrator.
Interim. Okay. Great, thank you. Glad to get that fixed.
Yeah, and I'm the interim finance director instead of acting. Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. What else?
Word has helpfully redone your layout for you now.
Mm-hmm.
The chart got bumped to the second page now.
Yeah. I guess adding the few words pushed it down. So here's the second page.
On this page, the only suggestion I had, which you can take or leave, is down when you say the available funds from the police department, and then your parenthesis, the town recently joined Regional Dispatch Center. So we'll no longer face the need to hire dispatchers. I would suggest just taking that out. Just to me, it may be a little bit misleading. Part of it is probably just my own, I wouldn't say beef, but my own sort of like question about the regional dispatch thing. This comment makes it seem like long-term, the budget for dispatch is going to be lower since we don't have to hire dispatchers. When in reality, I believe that long-term, the cost of dispatch is going to be higher, because when you looked down the line of Chief Galvin's presentation about regional dispatch, and you looked past the point where the state grant funding would run out, and then we're fully on the hook for it. I believe the cost that the fee that we pay to the regional dispatch was greater than the cost of hiring our own dispatchers. That's not to say that it's a bad idea, because there's a lot of benefit to the regional dispatch, but I think that I'm not sure that the cost savings 5-6 years down the line are going to be there. So it feels unnecessary to add that comment in
yeah.
the context of these minutes. So I'm like, let's just take it out.
Sure, that's fine. I'm good with that. Anybody else? Any other glitches or corrections or suggestions?
So Steve, this is not a comment about your suggestion about the meeting minutes, but I'm going to have to look at it again, but I do believe that there is continued advantage to having the regional dispatch as opposed to hiring our own when you take into consideration other factors like COLA and the biggest factor of all, the fact that we had police officers doing the dispatch up until very recently. But I do believe, again, I'll look at it again, and to confirm, I do have some minutes from previous conversations about this, but I do believe there's still advantage to the regional dispatch, financial advantage, even beyond the incentives running out.
All right,
Again,
so
we can take a look at this.
Yeah, we can take a look. We don't need to resolve that. We don't need to resolve that tonight. Anything else on the minutes? Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see everybody again. Okay, so let's see. Let me entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Second. All right, and let's do a roll call vote. Spinning down my screen. Nora.
Aye. I approve.
Steve.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Natalie.
Aye.
Wasim.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
And I am also aye. So minutes approved 7-0. Okay. I did just realize, unless you did this before I got on, Steve, I don't think anybody had signed up to take minutes tonight.
I literally just had the same thought. So unless you've been taking notes on it, I can probably retroactively watch the meeting and generate some minutes.
Okay, if you're willing to do that, that'd be great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. Our usual custom is to ask for a volunteer at the beginning of meetings. So next meeting, I'll write myself a big note or put a big yellow sticky on my computer monitor to remind me to do that, so we get set up for somebody to be prepared to do that. Okay, so I think the last thing would be to just flip calendars open and just talk about next possible meeting date. Again, we've typically done Wednesday nights at 7. So looking a month out, could be September 14th, could be September 21. Steve, I don't know if you are thinking of any schedule issues that I'm not thinking of that would make one of those better than the other, or if anybody else has a strong preference one way or another.
I would generally just suggest going a little earlier than you think, just because if the guidance gets a little bit tricky, you may want to squeeze an extra meeting in there.
All right.
So if guidance goes smoothly, then great, we're done with guidance and you get it out by October 31st, and that gives us an easier fall. But I find that to be better than us having difficulty determining what we want guidance to be, and then we have to have another meeting, in mid-November, and then you have to write the letter, and so then it's end of November by the time it's like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, and now all the budget makers have a month now to get their budgets out, so
okay,
I think the budget makers appreciate getting the guidance early as well. So
all right, so that sounds like very sensible thought. So how about September 14th? Is that any obvious conflicts for anybody or problems?
Works for me.
Okay, so let's plan on that. And I will, an appropriate length of time beforehand, send around an agenda and get the meeting officially posted and all of that. I think I'm gonna Steve and I had a conversation about this afternoon. I think I will try on the Zoom link to see if I can just set up with a single Zoom link for meetings. So we'll just always use the same Zoom link for meetings, and that should just make it a little easier to find the link and get hopped on. So unless anybody has anything else for tonight, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Excellent. Okay, let's do a quick spin through. Nora,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Natalie,
Aye.
Wasim,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
and I'm also an aye. All right, very good. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned, and we'll see everybody on Wednesday, September 14th.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good night.
The meetings are not usually this fast, so.
Yes. Don't get
Don't
the
get
wrong
used to this.
expectation. All right.